Welcome back into Cougar Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Kyle Ireland, Mitch Harper. We are live from Dowdy Ficklen Stadium in Greenville, North Carolina, as we are just a few short hours away from BYU facing the East Carolina Pirates. Mitch, we've got some other games that are going on right now in the Big 12 Conference, one that wrapped up last night, as well as Oklahoma State fell at home to Tulsa 19-12, and then right now Texas Tech is facing off against Utah in Salt Lake City. The Red Raiders are currently up 10-3, and then we've also got SMU facing off against TCU. The Mustangs just took the lead there in the fourth quarter, 24-21 over the Horned Frogs. But last night we were watching a little bit of that game between the Oklahoma State Cowboys and the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. What did you make of the result there with Mike Gundy now losing back-to-back games there at his alma mater?
First time since 1957 that Oklahoma State lost to Tulsa in Stillwater, and first time since 1998 they lost to Tulsa. I think Mike Gundy's done. I think that it's crazy to say, because when BYU got invited to the Big 12, you thought of Oklahoma State as one of the mainstays, the consistent programs in the conference. Remember, when BYU got invited in 2021, Oklahoma State won the Fiesta Bowl, and Mike Gundy had that a statement at the podium when he got the Fiesta Bowl trophy. Hey, Notre Dame's got a brand, but we got a brand too. And in 4 short years, they've destroyed that brand to where that talent is not there, non-existent. And it kind of coincides with NIL and, Boone Pickens passing, their prominent booster. Oklahoma State's a mess. And I think that's a job where maybe you just need a new voice to kind of reignite things, because once things get so negative, it's hard to go back and just say all is well. And like Hal from the BYU truck, all is well. It's not all is well for Oklahoma State right now. So that was a terrible loss. They were a double-digit favorite at home, despite being a team that got hammered 69-3 to Oregon. That was just not a good look for Oklahoma State. And right now, this Utah-Texas Tech game, Baron Morton for Texas Tech is out. Will Hammond, the quarterback, he's in, and they're on the move right now. It's the fourth quarter between the Red Raiders and Utes. I'm kind of surprised, Kyle. I honestly thought this was going to be a high-scoring game. I thought the offenses were going to show up. I picked Texas Tech to win this game, but I thought maybe 37-34, maybe first to 40 potentially in this game. But it's a defensive slugfest, and maybe we're learning a lot about Texas Tech from the standpoint if they can maybe hang in rock fights, but also maybe that Utah offense was just simply a byproduct of you played a dumpster fire in UCLA and you played Wyoming, who was tough, and Cal Poly, and you go, maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit and say they're not maybe the greatest offense on turf yet. But they're having some struggles against Texas Tech, who paid a ton of money in the trenches for that defensive line, but it's 10-3 right now in the fourth quarter. Your thoughts on that game that's going on?
Yeah, you mentioned the previous schedule there for Utah. It's funny because we talked about this last week during the bye about, just how we don't really know how good any of these teams are yet this early on in the season. And, kind of goes off of that conversation we had about the AP poll and whether or not BYU should be ranked and how good these teams actually are. Because imagine if, Utah had played Wyoming in week 1 and then had played UCLA in week 3, how different that victory over the Bruins would have felt, as opposed to having it be a season opening win. You just don't know how good or bad any of these teams are, and now UCLA is without a head coach, and Utah's 3-0, but now they're down at home and facing a Red Raider offense that's on the move.
We're not seeing much offense in the Utah-Texas Tech game, but we're seeing a lot of offense in TCU, SMU. You just noted moments ago that SMU took the lead. Well, TCU quickly responded. Josh Hoover completed a 70-yard touchdown pass. The Horned Frogs are now up 28-24 with 9:18 to go in the fourth quarter. TCU's legit to me. I think TCU is a great football team this year. I had them coming into the year as a preseason top 15 team. I'm all in on TCU.
You had those two teams. You had Texas Tech and TCU as your picks to be in the Big 12 championship
I think
game.
These are the two best teams. If Texas Tech gets by Utah, I think the path is set for them to maybe go 11-1, 12-0 even potentially, and get to Arlington. I think in a crazy way, Kyle, there is a path for the Big 12 to potentially get 3 teams in the playoff. Potentially. if you have a TCU and a Texas Tech maybe go 12-0 and 11-1, and then maybe square off in Arlington, and you maybe have another team that's 11-1 as well, there could be a path potentially for Big 12 teams, because you see what's happening around college football right now. Clemson's a mess. The ACC might be a one-bid league potentially. Maybe it's only Miami. The SEC and the Big Ten, they're going to get theirs. Maybe 4 or 5 teams. Who knows?
Notre Dame's already got 2 losses, and so they're kind of up against it at the beginning part of the season as an independent.
The group of 5 will probably only get 1, so that maybe creates a spot potentially for maybe 3 Big 12 teams. Now, again, that sounds crazy for a league that last year only got 1 bid from Arizona State, but if you get some teams to really stack up wins and get to that 11-win threshold in the regular season, that could be a conversation, because, as we know, in a 16-team league, not everyone's playing everyone. So you're going to have some weeks or some schedules that maybe line up to where you miss an opponent, and with tiebreakers, maybe you miss out. But I think it could get kind of crazy for the Big 12 potentially. But we'll keep tabs on all of these games. Other Big 12 games taking place today. UCF hosts Bill Belichick in North Carolina, 1:30 p.m. on Fox. Kansas, for the first time in 15 years, is a double-digit favorite over a Big 12 team. They're taking on West Virginia, 4 o'clock on FS1. And then this is an intriguing game, Arizona State at Baylor. Baylor's a 2.5-point favorite in this one. Who do you got in that game, ASU Baylor?
I think ASU responds from a loss. I really do, Mitch. I think that they're going to –
Well, they responded last week. They took down Texas State.
Yeah, Texas State I'm not going to count as a responding loss, just because, coming out of SEC territory, you're facing a team that's, at a spot where you should definitely win that game against Texas State. But I think that this game against Baylor, a conference opponent, I think that you need to be able to show that you've moved on from that loss against Mississippi State. I do think that ASU is super talented. They obviously are a different team than they were a season ago, but I do like the talent of Sam Leavitt.
Next week's BYU opponent, Colorado, they look to respond after a disappointing performance last week against Houston. They host Wyoming tonight, 8:15 p.m. Colorado's a big favorite. There's reports that Caden Salter is going to be the QB1 once again for the Buffs. So BYU, once you're done watching BYU East Carolina, you can tune in to get a scouting report on next week's opponent, the Colorado Buffaloes, who BYU will open Big 12 play against, and we will be in Boulder for that game. You and I will, Kyle, for BYU and Colorado. That's an 8:15 game next week, late night between Cougs and the Buffs. First time BYU is going to go to Boulder since the 80s when Steve Young stepped in for Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon was the starter. He got banged up, and then Steve Young stepped in Boulder. It's been a long time since the Cougs played against the Colorado Buffaloes. But let's take a break. That's hour number 1 here on Cougar Sports Saturday, live from Greenville, North Carolina. KSL News Time is 12:59 p.m. We'll get to some more BYU football player interviews here on Extended Pregame of BYU and East Carolina right here on KSL News Radio.